didn't realize until I'd gone home to my parents' home after my first leave as to how I got in. And that was, I realized that everything I did as a kid centered around aviation. Built models, drew pictures, you know, the normal thing that I guess I took for granted, but no one ever realized. And it meant a lot. And as I got in, went through the aviation cadet program, went to San Angelo, Texas, and then to Lubbock, and graduated in the B-25. The first assignment after graduation was to Great Falls, Montana, flying the C-54, which I loved. So also where I met my wife. And then from there to Hawaii, tough assignment. I went to Thule, Greenland, on a MATS flight from Great Falls. And before I left, my operations officer said, "Hey, you know, we have an assignment to Hawaii. Anyone want it?" No one said yes. I went to Thule, was gone 2 weeks, came back, and nobody I knew was there. They'd all gone to Korea. So I said, "Is that assignment for Hawaii still there?" Yes. So 4 years later, we returned from Hawaii. But my first son was born in Hawaii, and I flew C-54s for about 18 months and then converted to C-124s. A-26, I had progressed through many assignments and many different type of aircraft, C-130 and Convair and so forth. But I had a lot of R-2800 time, which I don't know if that entered in or not, but I just got an assignment out of Washington. The fellow that assigned me was Joe Vaden, a good friend of mine. I went through the training program in Alexandria, Louisiana. Went home, and it was a classified assignment, Big Eagle. And I was then told that I would be going to NKP in a couple of months. Didn't. It was delayed for over a year, so I had to go back and get retraining. Couldn't fly anything else in the meantime. So went to Nakhon Phanom, got there about the 7th of July in 1967. Took a checkout flight and then proceeded to fly my missions, and then the last 4 or 5 months of the assignment, I also worked in Tuac and a brief flight cruise. But I thoroughly enjoyed the 26. I enjoyed the mission over there. Only problem was strictly nighttime flying, so I didn't get to see too much. Tom Owens, as he was referred to as TEO, was my navigator. Great kid, great navigator. I taught him to make every other GCA and every other landing because that was the best life insurance that I had. And he was very, very adept, very good at it. Well, we operated out of NKP, but we either had Steel Tiger, which was generally the southern half of Laos. That was broken into 2 areas. And then northern Laos, which was barrel roll, and that was where I preferred to fly. And that's where, just coincidentally, I ended up with more missions there than I did in the southern part. I think it was more picturesque in my mind, and I couldn't see anything, but it was sort of, well, west of Hanoi, we could see the lights of Hanoi most of the time when we were in the barrel roll area. And had some enjoyable missions up there. We were our own FAC, so we needed no one. The Nimrods were the only aircraft at NKP that was a sole FAC. And Yellowbirds, B-57s, could FAC themselves, but they flew out of, I don't know, either southern Thailand or Saigon. If you were really fortunate, you'd see a wood fire on the ground. Once in a while, you'd see the lights of a truck. Sometimes you'd see the tracers of small arms, and very frequently 37 millimeter, and that was a good giveaway. So we initially carried flares, but they were an awful drag, and of course they illuminated us quite easily. But of course you could identify under those huge flares a small target. And once you acquired the target, maybe you were fortunate enough to get a fire and you needed no more flares. I was fortunate in that I never once was hit. I was awakened one morning about just before daylight as the line chief came up and said, you got to come down and see what we found in your engine. And it was an unexploded 47 lodged in the behind the mag some way or another. How it had gone through the prop, I don't know. Didn't damage the thing, so very fortunate there. You were pretty tired. Everybody was tired, but my navigator got every other GCA and every other landing.
You had an issue with a reversing propeller one time?
Yes, on the PSP, and when you go into a quick yaw on the PSP, it's not nice. But so consequently, I got to use the new hard surface runway for the first time when I was able to facilitate a go-around, and became a little safer. PSP was pretty slick. My first mission was to Cambodia, and that was in 1967, and we didn't fly in Cambodia until 1972, I believe. So my first mission never existed. They lost some of the first recovery group, one of the airplanes that was shot down. I can't give you specifics on how many, but eventually the initial crew was recovered, fortunately. Lima Site 85 was the top of a hill, rather elongated hill, maybe half a mile, 3/4 of a mile long at the top, relatively flat, stuck up out of the jungle, and had a TACAN station, among other things, up there. And it was a valuable asset to the Laotian military and to the American forces as well, but it was subsequently lost. I flew 2 missions in support of the area when it was undergoing siege, and then I flew 1-day mission, which was to protect some of the Laotians, the families that lived on the top of this hill, as they were being evacuated. We had bags of rice in the Bombay, which we dropped to some of the folks that had made it out of it. And I think the most interesting thing is that the people from the top were being evacuated by helicopter. And at one time I saw 18 of them, no two alike and no two painted the same way, so I don't know where they came from. But it was successful. Well, we had napalm, 250 white phosphorus, Willie Pete's. My favorite was the funny bomb, which I do not recall a nomenclature for. It was about like a 55-gallon oil barrel, but the aerodynamics of it too, but it was thermite, among other things, and you could drop that and you had an area of damage about the size of a football field, and very combustible. And they tended to leak, so we had to stop carrying them in the bomb bay because a little corrosive, and you know, you didn't want to have a fire in there. So they put them on the wings, and then there was a big drag. But loved the 50 cal. You know, we didn't always have a target for them, but a very, very effective weapon. Fire those, and it felt like the airplane was going to stop. One of our navigators, whose name escapes me right now, was the oldest of the group, and he was a big man, and he'd flown 3 or 4 nights solid without a break, and came back from this one particular mission. Heathman was his pilot, but he was so exhausted he couldn't get out of the airplane. They jury-rigged a prop crane, hooked it onto the back of his harnesses, and pulled him straight up. And needless to say, he didn't fly the next day.
Look familiar, Bob?
Oh, it sure does.
When the bomb bay doors come out, they come down like this.
It's a pleasure to see.
We pulled all them out. They rotate up. There's
Pleasure to see.
side of the roof, and then they come out. 3 of them come out like that. It's like a big C1 fan blade. 3 of them. And all it does is it disturbs the airflow. Evidently, the air was driving the bombs back.
All right, tell us that.
You know, the cockpit is pretty tight, but I always had to wear my watch with the watch itself on the inside of my wrist to protect it from being scratched on the outside here on the, above the circuit breakers. Great.
You were telling a story a minute ago about the twinkling lights just before daylight in an accidental discharge of some 50 caliber.
Oh, yeah. We took those little buggers out, at least. We hope we did. We got 2 of their tankers full of some sort of fuel. I think we disturbed their breakfast more than anything else, but they went on to Quaid afterwards, and that was not a pleasant thing. But we could not get permission to hit them with anything that counted. Politics of Southeast Asia were less than desirable. We couldn't, as an example, use a base in South Vietnam as an alternate. I guess they'd rather have us go to China or Hanoi. Sarcasm.